Welcome back to Champions of the Fog. Our last match of the day is Elysium versus Tremor, and we got Elysium as the Wraith killing against Tremor's survivor team on the Cold Tower as the Wraith. And I am joined here today by Hell's Taco Truck. How you doing today, Hell? Hey, anytime, happy to have you here, and we are getting quite a treat here as we got Tremor versus Elysium duking it out here, and we got a sloppy butcher already revealed to the survivors as they took that M1 hit there on the Kate. On top of which, we also did see a bamboozle coming into play as the Wraith did block that window that they vaulted earlier. On top of which, the Swift Hunt here and Shadow Dance coming in clutch with that pseudo-brutal strength, thus chipping through these pallets bit by bit by bit. As far as the third perk concerned, of course, the tried and true Corrupt Intervention, but last but not least, we got a Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. So, real quick, my friend, I think your video.ninja settings might be slightly incorrect. So with that being said, we're gonna fix that auditory issue in just a moment while we can then hear our friend Hell's Taco Truck. In the meanwhile, Wraith here camping out the K on their first hook, trying to progress them to second stage. Mind you, without the survivor's ability to be hook grabs, they can offer a 1-for-1 exchange. However, with Scourge Hook Pain Resonance now, that is going to be a whole lot more difficult, as I imagine these survivors do not want to give up a 20% regression off of the gen. That being said, Wraith checking on the gen there to the left, seeing the tap on it, but not looking to push them off. That is about 3 cylinders in. And we do see the firecracker going down, but no more light burn for the Wraith, so that is pretty significant, as we do see the second gen pop off and the tap vaulting back into the Wraith. A little bit unfortunate for them, but it working out well for them. That being said, we are going to see them jump back over to the hook, trying to see if they can get a heal here. That being said, that there is a For the People and Ace going to be exchanging themselves. However, there's going to be another 25% off the most progressed gen, which is pretty significant to say the least. That being said, we have seen if we can fix the audio. Hells, give me a quick testing 1 2 1 2. Still not working, unfortunately. So we'll keep on running some testing here to figure out what is what. We'll try one more time.
In live.
Oh, I saw some audio this time around. There we go. Things are working correctly now. Perfect. And welcome back to the stream, Hell. Thank you much for joining me, and hopefully you've been enjoying so far, as the Wraith has been running absolute terror on these survivors. We've been seeing hook trades for the peoples, 1-for-1 exchanges, and of course the good old Scourge Hook Pain Resonance here. And of course, Kate being sent back to campfire via the entity. And we're only at 2 gens completed. However, Wraith getting a big old taste of Blast Mine right there, getting blinded and stunned all the while.
That's one thing I've always liked about watching people play Wraith is it's always something that takes a lot of skill. A lot of people don't realize that. They think Wraith is just a mindless killer, like it's not there's not a lot of skill that goes into it, but in reality, for a killer like that, it's completely opposite. There's so much that goes into this killer. Like if you've watched people play at a high skill level with them, how they approach their tiles, how they approach their mind games, the 50s. When you play a killer that at this level, much like how you've seen Laser, how this guy's playing. It's you have to enjoy how he goes into a 50-50. One of the biggest things I always like about it.
Yeah,
How
absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing about Wraith and the biggest thing that I always try and emphasize, it's really about taking away the control from the survivors, especially around pallets. Around fillers, the best thing Wraith can do is just sit in the middle of a pallet, body block the survivor's ability to utilize it, throw it, and utilize that speed that you get outside of your uncloak in order to get a quick hit. But there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of mind games, as we see right there with the ace kind of faking out that pallet. The Wraith getting that speed they need to get the hit, but the ace just faking out just enough to get to that pallet and pre-drop it. And now we have a 4D game of chess here as ace just continues to hold W against that pallet.
sometimes that's the best move, but it's always fun when you play against them too, because you have to wonder what's going on in this team's VC when they're trying to figure out, is it a pallet hating Wraith? You know, what add-ons he's using, and then once they figure that out, they change how they approach him, how they loop him, how they work with them. Are they going to pre-drop? Are they going to wait till he gets out of cloak to drop that pallet? Like, a lot of it comes into play, and this is where it comes into where, I don't know if you caught what Laser had a conversation with, I think it was Otofu, about how punishing mistakes can be and the differences between competitive and pubs, where if a killer makes a mistake or a survivor makes a mistake in situations in comp, it's much more punishing than it would be in a pub, because the survivors are trained to react to such a situation like that. Like, if Wraith had missed that hit on that pallet, how much longer would that chase have gone on? Things like that. So it's always interesting to watch how these people react and how they work against killers like Wraith.
Oh, 1000%. I mean, at the end of the day, even in pubs, especially though MMR is, for all intent, purpose, and myth, especially high MMR, quote unquote, but nonetheless, I mean, you give a survivor an inch and they're going to take a mile. That is even more so the case here in competitive play, where you just give them that much more pressure and they are going to make a full chase out of it. Gen after gen's going to pop off unless you're able to manage every single bit that these survivors have to offer. I mean, we're seeing it here where two survivors are injured, Sloppy Butcher a use, but with Bamboozle here, able to manage the tap here. Now all three are injured. This is a really good position for Wraith, and they still have a stack of Scourge, Hook, Pain, Resonance to get some regression in as well.
Absolutely. So in this situation such as this, for as an example, like with what you were saying, there was a situation with Wraith where I think that ace ran for the window because the Wraith wasn't set up where he should be, or maybe made a bad call, a little bit of a bad call that wouldn't be super noticeable to many. But had he gotten the hit on that ace before he jumped through the window into main building and then downed him inside main building on the first hit, which would have been that second hit, how would he have been able to stop any of the other gens from popping? Would they be at 1 gen, or would they still be at 3? Like, how things would have changed. Like, there's so much like that comes into watching these games such like that. Like, when you start to realize, wow, that one small mistake may have saved him at least 1 gen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing it here where the Wraith kind of going far out from their gens, trying to slow things down with the mangled stats effect. We're seeing the Ace and Nia trying to heal again, but all of the time that the Ace and Nia have put in to getting healed has kind of gone to waste, as we do have that mangled stats effect bleeding out the survivor after they stop healing. And we do see the down on the Nia. I do believe, if we're taking a look at the scorecard correctly, Nia has yet to be hooked, so this is going to be the Scourge, Hook, Pain, Resonance, regressing the most progressed gen by 25%. So this is huge for the Wraith if they're able to get to this hook in time, which I think they're just going to barely be able to make.
Oof, that has to be frustrating, knowing that you almost wiggled out. Like, that's, to me, I don't know about you, Gil, but to me, that always just hurts my soul.
Yeah, that is fair. That is fair. I'm definitely in the same boat. When it's like 99.9 and the score modifier tells you that you are just barely there, it is absolutely heartbreaking, to say the least. That being said, in another chase here with the tap, that is going to be them down. Wraith, though, thinking about slugging things out here to slow things down even further. We'll have to wait and see if it is worthwhile. And let's see here, as they will drop down from main. Bamboozle in play as well. And looks like they will be able to get this hit on the Nia. No Dead Hard. There's going to go to the corner, trying to extend chase as long as possible. But I think there's a great opportunity to get 2 more points for this hook stage. And at this point, it really can be any hook, as Skirchuk has now been exhausted. And I think Wraith keeping them in this back corner is going to be a huge play, allowing them to just kind of keep them in this 3-gen.
Yeah, see, that's where it comes now. Like, how are you gonna? What's the best way for them to go about handling something like this, in your opinion? They're in a 3-gen. They're struggling. They're ping-ponging between saving one another, picking one another up. They're in a really tight spot right now. What would you feel like in this game right now that they could do to change that?
I mean, it's going to be kind of difficult because at the end of the day, healing, though an option, isn't a great option based on Slobby Butcher. We see them trying to extend the chases here. Interesting that Tap kind of just choosing to go down at that pallet, not trying to play the window here. Maybe trying to offer themselves as bait in order to set up for the unhook. But yeah, that's a bit of an interesting play that we saw right there. Ace now in what could be the final chase. Less than 30 seconds on Ronnie before there's impact of the campfire via density. I think this here will result in the 4K for Wraith, but it can be difficult. I mean, you want to send Balanced Landing up to the, main building, so that way you're able to get value from that. You're wanting to split another 2 survivors probably on the lower gens on top of which, but with the positioning of the doors up top, you can basically check all 3 gens from one centralized location. It's not impossible for these survivors if the Wraith plays correctly and doesn't make any mistakes.
That's a good point. What I'm thinking right now is like how they could have, would it have been worth them sacrificing 1 survivor for them to force breaking the 3-gen? Where would they be? Would they have lost earlier in the game, or would they have been able to get out? That's kind of where my thought process is right now. Like, how could they have done something different to avoid being in that tight 3-gen?
Well, it's something that's hard to say, and at the end of the day, it really comes down to how the killer plays as well. If they're going to play into the 3-gen, if they're not, if they're going to, go for an extended chase in an effort to stop the survivors from completing a gen. It really depends on a whole lot of factors, so it's not just up onto the survivors and what they do or don't do. It also depends on the killer and how they decide to play. That being said, Wraith out on the hunt for this final survivor on the ground. About 2 minutes left until they do bleed out. However, based on the scorecard, we do see that they have been hooked only once. So if there is a bleed out, that will be a loss of 1 point.
Oof. And many times I've seen some teams have lost by 1 point. That's definitely fun to watch. Now, honestly, in my opinion, watching the end of this was really tough, because when Tap went down at that pallet that he just broke, you knew it was over at that point. Like, he was right by the hook. I was like, man, that's got to be tough, because in his head he's saying, I can't go down here because my colleague can't get a save. That's oof.
All right, and we are back. This time for set number 1, trial number 2, Tremor killing against Elysium Survivor Team once again as the Wraith on the Cold Tower, and they are going to need to get a 4K at 4 gens in order to force a set 3, or 3 gens or less in order to be victorious here in set number 1. With that being said, finding 3 survivors off the bat is a huge boon for this killer.
He's definitely going to have to try to capitalize on this, because a lot of these guys are out of my 1v1s, and I'll tell you, they're beasts when it comes to keeping a killer busy. So he's going to have to capitalize on it early to secure a strong win against these guys, because any small mistake, and I can promise you, Laser, Silhey, any of these guys are going to capitalize on that. They're going to punish this killer for any misstep that he might make. Will cost him a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wraith going for a bit of a fake out here, trying to mind game. Jake doing it back, though. It is a big back and forth here. However, Wraith might be able to reach here and will do so with the pallet drop, too. That is huge here because if the pallet was not dropped, that would change up a whole lot. But with it being dropped, they do not have to worry about a potential pallet stun. And this here will be the first hook here for Tremor's Wraith, resulting in a Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, progressing most progression by 25%.
Oh man, you have to hate the situation where you drop the pallet and you still get hit. You waste the resource. It basically makes it to where that's going to be a tough area to be, because I think that was the only pallet by Killer Shack, which means Killer Shack is going to be its own little dead zone once that pallet drops in there. So it's going to be really tough for them to get rid of all of the gens on the bottom side. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and see how they capitalize on it, how they're going to change it, if they're thinking about that, where it's going to go. With Elysium, they're at a high skill level gameplay. I'm sure they're thinking about that. It's definitely going to be fun to see how they change up the entire process, because if they're not careful, this can tip really heavily into the killer's side right now.
Yeah, absolutely. With that being said, we've seen a few perks get revealed throughout this process. Everything from Bamboozle, Sloppy Butcher, of course, Corrupt Intervention, and the perks and add-ons that this killer is using. That being said, 2 survivors injured now in Shack is pretty huge. As you mentioned, not a lot in the way of resources here. We see the Jake going for this pallet here, but will end up going down. Ace not too far away, thinking about coming in for the pallet drop for the save, but Wraith, seeing that too, will end up going for the Ace instead. Maybe a save coming for the Jake. But in the meanwhile, it looks like Wraith content with the grab on the Ace. I imagine we'll see another Scourge Hook Pain Resonance here in just a moment.
Absolutely. So watching how the killer's playing right now brings up a long debate that I've had people on whether or not, when you go into these games, is it best to tunnel and get one player out, or is it best to spread your hooks out and make sure every single person gets hooked, get as many hooks as possible? Right, like you're at the beginning, this is the state where you can figure out how you're going to approach this, and it looks like he's going for hooking every single person as much as possible, but also getting rid of someone if he can. What's your opinion on that? How do you see the best start to this with his current situation?
It really depends, to be honest, because fact of the matter is, it becomes really strange when you're running perks like Scourge Hook Pain Resonance and you're at the end game with 1 or 2 tokens left, meaning that if you had decided to instead go for the fresh hooks on each survivor, not only would you get 12 points secured, but you also would have gotten more regression, meaning that you could have gotten more chases, and so it basically adds another 90 seconds to the game at the very least, based on how Scourge Hook Pain Resonance works. And so for me, I'm always a fan of, if you're using perks like Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, like No Way Out, going for the fresh hooks makes a ton of sense. And then, you know, when you have the opportunity, when you see that survivor that is injured and on death hook, yeah, absolutely go for them. And especially after those fresh hooks, 1000% go for the tunnel, get someone out of the game.
Absolutely, I can definitely agree with you there. Right now, it's interesting to watch. It looks like Elysium has their 0 hook survivor, or at least one of them, out in the dangerous area where Killer Shack is, because they had to get rid of that gen over by like 5 or 6, depending on how you view your maps, at that hill gen right on the side of Killer Shack. They had to pop it. They had Laser there. What would have happened had Laser got caught, had he gotten down? He didn't have a whole lot around him. The killer could have easily had gotten them, so it kind of makes me wonder why he didn't down and kill Laser, but instead went to, I guess, get this tunnel out to get rid of one person.
Well, at this point in time, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. You have 2 stacks of Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. We know that Bill has yet to be hooked, so you have 1 stack of Save the Best for Last, Scourge Hook Pain Resonance currently available. We see Adam here as well. No pallets in sight. I think they will get the down before they get to the pallet in time, unless there's a survivor nearby for the pallet stun. This will be a clean hook here. No footsteps, just the sound of fire barrels instead. And, I mean, if they can get these next two Scourge Hook Pain Resonances, because survivors only have the choice of, really, I'm gonna say 1 to 2 gens. Working on 3 gens with 3 survivors remaining, not really happening. You kind of pick your 2. It's going to be 1 on the far side and 1 with the 2 on the other side there. We have a kind of a 2-1 split. The Scourge Hook Pain Resonance is going to hit one of them. And if you get Scourge Hook Pain Resonance both times, it's going to hit each one of them down to potentially 0. So I think here, it kind of works out in their favor, especially now that they can go after Bill and extend the game even further by another 15 seconds, let's say.
See, that's one of the best things I love about when people watch competitive matches. And I always tell people all the time when they ask me, like, hey, Taco, how can I get better doing this and this? You get new people in the scene. I always tell them, watch matches like this. Go to Champions of the Fall. Watch the matches. Watch how killers handle themselves. Because, like you pointed out, he saved that Scourge Hook Pain Resonance because he knew he was going to need it. Now he has Bill. They have 1 gen left. All he has to do is get Bill, down him, hook him, gets another regression, buys more time, and then from there I can just juggle the 3 survivors while they're working on gens, keeping them off, possibly getting a 4K at 1, tying up this match. One small thing can tip the balance at the end in your favor completely, and this is what I love about watching people learn, and they're like, okay, there's a lot more tactic to this game than just holding W and bloodlusting a survivor down.
Well, yeah. I mean, the biggest thing that I always say about all the time, DBD is sometimes more a resource management game than it is a asymmetrical game. Because fact of the matter is, much like we see this palette here, it's a resource that you can use in order to extend chase, in order to extend the game further. You also have your health states and hook states. They are resources to be bartered with. And as we see here, Bill going down, on one hand, going down means that you are being put up on hook and Scourge Hook Pain Resonance is activating. On the other hand, it means that your teammates are able to heal up, potentially work on generators, and also one of them isn't being sent back to campfire via the entity if they're on death hook. So there's a give and take to be had. Now the question is whether or not these survivors can complete 1 more generator now that Scourge Hook Pain Resonance has expired. Well, let's say theoretically gens are dead. 90 seconds is all they need, and the Ace currently in chase with the Wraith, going to be going for the unhook on Bill. I imagine a 1-for-1 trade, and I mean, at that point in time, Wraith's going to have to make a choice. Go for the tunnel out or go for the gens, because we know Adam's going to be sitting on them as we speak.
That's the thing, right? Is like, he knows he's got to get a 4K at 1 gen. He has the choice. Like you said, does he tunnel laser? Or does he go for the save? Or does he go for the gen? Because right now, this is the point where it's a win or lose. He's on that gen. How far is that gen? Not that far. But still, like you said, it's these choices that make or break the situation. And I always love watching this because it's at this point we're gonna see whether he wins or loses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, at this point, this gets very interesting. Wraith has a bit of an advantage here because of the mobility. However, survivor comms are key here, because if they can basically just call out whenever the Wraith leaves chase, then that means survivors can leave gen early, give Wraith more space, and yes, Wraith is going to kick the gen for 2.5% plus 0.3% per second thereafter, but you have 2 survivors who can then jump on this gen. Yes, one of them's going to take a hit. They're going to run away. We know Wraith is going to probably go back for the gen, meaning that Adam and Ace can probably heal up in that time. So it's really about chipping away at this gen and being patient, being thoughtful. Here's what the Wraith is going to do. Here's what our survivors are going to do. We see a balance line coming in from Bill, and Wraith realizes that they cannot go for it. I mean, at the end of the day, the winning condition is this 5th gen. The survivors don't need to escape. All they need is enough pressure to where 3 of them, 2 of them, even 1 of them can just sit on the gen and even go down after it's finished, and that is that.
That's exactly. Now you see Ace is over here wasting as much of this killer's time. He realizes I have to keep him on me as much as possible. He's in the basement. They have tons of time to get that last gen out. This is where now we're gonna see if Elysium can steal that win off of that gen. If they don't finish that gen, I don't think Elysium's gonna make it out.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. And it's now coming down to a really interesting scenario. You now only have 2 survivors in the match. Before, it's a little bit more manageable with 3, because when you chase 1, there's going to be 1 survivor on 1 gen, the other one survivor going to be harassing the gen that you just pushed them off of, and you kind of rinse repeat that. But now if 2, it gets really tricky, especially as we see Adam is injured here and now going to be in chase. Bamboozle coming into play. Wraith going to be going around the pallet here, trying to go for the mind game. There's the down on Adam. The question is, does Bill have enough time to stick to the gen and potentially even take hits in order to get it completed? The alternative win condition is an escape via the hatch. So if they're able to escape via the hatch, that could result in the same result as a gen here. And if we're looking at set number 1 right now, we can see that Bill has 2 escape points to give. However, Bill going to be found out here in the main building, going to take a hit as well. I don't think bounce landing's going to save you. It's starting to look more and more like we're going to a set number 3.
Absolutely, it's definitely, like I said, it's fun to watch because it was anyone's game at any point in time. But because the 3rd survivor went down when they didn't buy enough time for their team to get those gens cranked out and finished. That basically, at that point, the game was done. Because it's so difficult to get that gen done when it's just 2 people. That means one person has to hold the killer for that extended period of time.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing is once the Keystone month was absolutely Ace dying. I think Wraith realizing that the Ace was going to be healing and searching them out was the right play. I think Ace could have potentially found a safe location to heal, whether that be in the corner of the map or somewhere with a pallet or window for them to utilize. But because they didn't have that available to them and they were sent back to Campfire via the entity, it resulted in a 4K here for the Wraith. All right, and we are back for channel number 3, set number 2. We're going to see a Blight mirror match here on the Gas Heaven. We're going to be seeing Osaka from Tremor killing against Elysium Survivor team, and that was one hell of a hit right there.
Yes. Oh my god, I love watching Osaka play. It's always so much fun because he is such an expert on 50-50s. It's a dangerous game when you have someone of Osaka's caliber playing on Blight. And what the fun fact on Osaka is his average time on chases is usually about between 15 to 25 seconds. If it's good, you can keep him busy for maybe 35 seconds to 40. And that's on the long end. It's always so much fun to watch.
Yeah, no, the Blight players and Blight mains in the world are an insane breed, to say the least. Even after spending a month plus playing nothing but Blight, I will never be able to get to the same point as them. That being said, good stun there from Tap, but Blight looking to go for the kill out. We'll see a swing and a miss there as we do see a life coming in clutch.
That's definitely the only reason he's still up. With most Blight players I've watched, and I've seen a lot of them, the average run for a lot of those guys is usually about like 35 to 40 seconds. And while it doesn't sound like a lot, some of them will go to like 45 seconds. The 5 to 10, maybe 15-second difference between those guys and Osaka is just, it's just amazing to watch. Like some of the things that Osaka does is great. Now, I know I sound like a simp when it comes to this, but it's just fun to watch him play and how good he's gotten strictly off of bump logic.
Yeah,
not all those other tricks.
That's the biggest thing when it comes to Blight, is knowing what you can bump off of, what you can slide off of. We saw that on main building where I didn't realize that there is a point on the back of that main building where you would actually be able to bump and get enough of a bump to then line yourself up with the door to then able to either get in for a hit or just to break that breakable wall. Either way, it's just a masterclass in how to play Blight. We do see the survivor here on hook, about to go to second stage if these survivors are not careful. You see Blight also just going back and forth, trying to bait these survivors to come in for the unhook. You see Phil with the 1-for-1 exchange, but letting go a little bit. Not sure what was up there. Either ways, that will be the down, and looks like we will continue to come out here on the survivor. So swinging through the pallet, I think they're trying to step in front of, but it didn't quite work out the way they wanted.
Yeah, that's they have to be panicking when it comes to playing against Osaka. They know, like, whenever they went for that unhook, they stopped. They were thinking they were going to do something else. They're panicking. They know they have a really good Blight, so they have to play everything perfectly. If they don't, it's going to go terrible. Now you have a 3v1 versus Osaka at 3 gens. I can see them, unless they do something drastic or they pop 2 gens now, it most likely is going to be a 4K at 2 gens.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, the biggest thing that we talk about S tiers all the time, it's not about how many survivors that escape via the exit gates, it's how many gens that you complete. So with that being said, we'll have to wait and see what that looks like.
It's exactly the same thing I've told people. When it comes to playing someone as good as Osaka, it's not about getting out. It's like you said, how many gens you're going to get done. So if you sacrifice yourself for a gen, normally wouldn't be, you'd condemn it. You'd be like, hey, that's not a good idea. You want to get out. But in situations like this, it's all about how many I can get done, so that way my killer has an easier time to beat this.
Yeah, that being said, just some clean hits with the blighted rushes here, and we're gonna see another hook here incoming. Right now, Dynamite at 3 stacks, so 9% slowdown here on gen progression and healing. So quite significant to say the least. Why I personally do like Dying Light over Thanatophobia in most cases, but especially with hyper lethal killers like the Blight here, they can get so much raw value from it.
I 100% agree with you. Now that's what now you got to wonder, what is Laser doing? He's setting up. That's an interesting choice, because Laser could have been on a gen the whole time trying to get one more done before they all go. Or this could play out in their favor. Maybe they get one person out. That would be huge against someone like Osaka.
Yeah, absolutely, but a 99 sprint press coming in for the bill here. Gonna get them a bit of distance, but with the Blighted Crow and Blighted Rat from the Blight, there's not much distance gained there. And we do see scratch marks going into the main building. The question is where this last survivor might be. They do also have the Deep Wound stats effect, which they do need to be mindful of. There's another 14 seconds of time required before they can really do much of anything. And that slide tech trying to get that hit there. Very aggressive, to say the least, in such close quarters, but almost working out in their favor.
Absolutely. Now I love it, because you don't see very many comp Blights moon rushing inside of a comp match, because it's so difficult to do, like, on the instant. Like, you can waste a whole bump, and that one mistake can cause the whole game.
Oh yeah,
so a lot of these guys
1000%.
don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's a calculated risk. At the end of the day, it's kind of high risk, high reward. But at the end of the day, you know, when you're able to play at this level that you're seeing here, I mean, the rewards tend to outweigh the risks. And we're seeing that play out here for Osaka, as we're looking at an estimated 4K at 2 generators remaining, 3 completed here, which means that Elysium's play is going to need to get the same result for a tie, or in order to get a 4K at 2 gens completed or less for a win in set number 2.
So this is the main problem when it comes to Blight players. They always lose track of the survivor that they left on the ground. And I've seen whole matches lost because of this one thing. They can't find the survivor that has the least amount of hooks that they left on the ground.
Yeah,
And this is what's happening now.
Yeah, if we're looking at it too, this is 3 points on the line here if they're not able to find the slug in the next like minute 30 seconds. So this is definitely quite significant because that basically gives them another gen and a half in the instance that they do lose the survivor to a bleed out.
I've seen it so many times with so many people. Like the last time I saw this was Momo 7th playing against, I think it was Eternal, where they lost the whole thing because Momo couldn't find the last guy on the ground.
Yeah, no, it's quite significant, especially in tiebreakers where we are going to a set 3 as well. So it is going to come down to points. That being said, no adrenaline on Laser. And since gens have already been locked down by Venti, we'll show you that the last perk that we never saw used, by the way, was Pop Goes the Weasel.
Honestly, I don't know why Osaka brought it. I've never seen, he's not the kind of guy you see hitting gens. And it's unfortunate right now because you know he's mauling because he just lost 3 points. He can't find the survivor on the ground. It could be the win, it could be the loss to the team right now. That's where they're at right now.
The failures of being too successful, more or less. But wait, there's Crows. Seconds on the clock. Picking them up. Last second! Holy hell, when I say that bleed out timer disappeared, there was nothing on that timer. And they picked them up as soon as they could.
You know, Laser's upset. He was right there. Oh my god, that was great. I'm sorry.
Talk about a photo finish right there. Jesus. All right, and we are back for set number 2, trial number 4, Elysium versus Tremor, with Elysium killing against Tremor's survivor team. And I was about to say, I was gonna say like, oh, we have, you know, another Blight Mirror, but then Nancy just pops out of the woodwork, and I think that we have a very early start to this match.
I absolutely agree with you. It's definitely not a situation you want to be in when it comes to playing against a Blight main. You want to be, like I say all the time, you want to be like a fart in the wind. He knows you're there, but he can't see you. You keep on gens, keep him guessing as long as possible. Try to get a gen done in the meantime while he's trying to find you.
Yeah, that is fair. On the bright side, though the survivors are aware of Dying Light, they did not gain a sec as that was the obsession. So in a way that could be beneficial here for the survivors, as now they're able to potentially have the obsession be the one funneled out. And if that is the case, that will allow the survivors not to have that Dying Light penalty. However, do want to point out 2 other perks that were revealed, which was Pop Goes the Weasel, regressing that gen that they kicked by 30% of its current progression, in addition to a brutal strain.
I agree. A Dying Light, honestly, that's definitely, correct me if I'm wrong, because it may have gotten buffed in the meantime. I've been gone for a while. I don't know, but it's not a commonly used perk, I thought. It didn't seem as useful as it was before it got nerfed with other things.
So we definitely have started to see it more and more on S tiers, where we become more and more restrictive of what perks they can and cannot use. Running Tremors is a very similar perk in that regard, where we start to see more and more of it as we, you know, got rid of agitation on S tiers. There's a decisive strike that I've been waiting for. You know, for those who don't know, the obsession is determined at the beginning of the match, dependent on the perks that are brought to the game. So those of you with For the People are less likely to get the obsession, whereas those with the decisive strike are more likely to be the obsession. And there's only one decisive and one For the People. You can guarantee that the person with For the People is not the obsession, and the person with the obsession markers are the ones with decisive strike. So Nancy going in strong here, but this is interesting. So here's my situation with this interaction, Dying Light specifically. You're getting 0 stacks. Survivors are not getting any penalty for the hooks here. Dying Light is a dead perk, even more so if Nancy gets tunneled out. However, this does mean that survivors can't use For the People, because if they change the obsession now, that means that they just changed it up, and now they can get 1 stack on Nancy and stacks on any other survivor except for the Zarina.
That's a tough call, man. I don't know. Do you get rid of the regression perk? Does Dying Light even matter enough to get rid of it? I mean, at this point, they just need to finish 2 gens. That's it, and they win. They know this. So do they keep the survivor alive long enough to finish 2 gens, or do they get rid of Dying Light early? It's kind of going to be a hit or miss right now against someone at the level that this Blight is playing. Clearly, she's a good Blight. I feel like they're making the right choice by keeping her alive long enough to keep them busy, so that way everyone else can stay on a gen to just finish 2. They don't have to win. They just have to finish 2 gens. That's it. I mean, they don't have to get anyone out. They just have to finish 2.
Yeah, that is the biggest thing. The win condition here is to get a 4K at 2 gens completed or less. So if 1 more gen is completed, that there is the tie condition. If a gen after that is completed, though, that will be Tremor walking away victorious here in set number 2. However, we're still going to a set 3. Set 1 ended in a draw, and you need 2 wins and a best out of 3 in order to claim victory in the match overall. So, going to be really, really interesting here, to say the least. But that being said, Nancy going to be here at the pallet. I love this interaction. I both hate and love it, where Survivor just like runs into pallet to keep the fastball animation. But, you know, that's all they do, and so you kind of have to play the 50-50 mind game of, okay, do they vault, do they not vault?
That's exactly, it's always funny to watch. Most people in there would get psyched out, they would vault too early, there's a lot that goes into there. That's what I love about it. This Survivor just held it there. They were good, they didn't freak out, they didn't panic, they held it, they're wasting the time. And now, honestly, in my opinion, I feel like they should have dropped Shack Pallet, but I mean, hey, they at least held this killer long enough that I'm sure 2 gens will be popping very shortly.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that at least 1 gen will pop here in just 1 second. I mean, this gen is nearly completed. However, Pop Goes Weasel going to regress it by 30% of its progression, though. Light walking away from it, thinking that there might be progress on another gen. Taking a quick peek and listen on those 2. They got within 20 meters, so they got a good listen in. Doesn't sound like there's too much progression, and so they're going to get their pop in and rush off to Shack, I think. Or
man,
nope. Gonna go over here.
That's it. This Blight has just sheer cojones, man. I tell you, because I would not have walked away from that gen. I'd have freaked out. Like I don't know. Like I get too panicky. This guy, this killer has like nerves of steel to be able to walk away from a gen that far progressed and not worry about it getting popped.
Yeah, however, looks like it wasn't the one that they're worried about got popped. Instead, it was the one in main. So that is 4 gens completed, meaning that Tremor does walk away victorious here in set number 2. That in mind, it's going to come down to set 3. And we see a tie at the end of set 3, then it comes to overall match points. So Elysium is going to have to win here in set 3 in order to be victorious in the match overall. However, if Trevor wins, then that's a closed and shut case. That's 2 wins in their favor. That's the game. But 5th gen popped here. This Survivor team want to make sure they get as many points as possible in case of a tie condition where they want to make sure that they come out on top. And interesting. Dropping this arena in front of look like they had plenty of time. So they must have seen something worth the value of getting that drop there. It looks like they have found the scratch marks from the Nia.
like you said, that it's all about points. They know they've lost, but they're wanting to gather as many points as humanly possible to try and get that win. But I have to ask you now, let's say in a hypothetical situation, if there was a 4K at 1G, if they hadn't have found Laser, if Tremor hadn't have found Laser and Laser would have clicked out, would Elysium have won this match?
I believe it would have been a 1-point difference because it would have given them a gen and a half. So yes, so that would have been a 1-point difference in favor of Elysium. That is correct.
It's amazing how these situations come down to the smallest detail. From bleeding out being the reason you lose a match could be the reason you lose the whole thing by just bleeding out. Now, that's not obviously what happened, but it just blows my mind, like how small, how one little detail can mean the biggest difference.
Oh yeah, 1000%. I mean, we're going to see Nia get onto the hook. I'm actually surprised about that. With the early drop and the Nia crawling away from hook, I was fully expecting them not to be able to get there in time. But looks like Blight will get the hook on the Nia, and they're going to be waiting out this survivor here. I think maybe in case there's a deliverance, but opting to pick up instead. And now there's 2 survivors fresh on hook. I'm trying to remember if we've seen a deliverance so far this match. Honestly, I'm not entirely certain, so Blight kind of hedging their bets on which one has it, which one doesn't.
Yeah, no, we haven't seen the deliverance yet.
So it's possible that still is up here. Alternatively, it's possible they may have just found the deliverance player early on, got the hook, and there is no deliverance here left. And we're just waiting for these survivors to be sent back to the campfire via the entity. And Blight doing a little bit of a dance here, just a bit anxious to have the match end and move to set 3. You know, it seems like they're also a little bit excited about the Legion mirror match.
Legion, like honestly, is like one of my least favorite killers to watch.
I don't know. I find
against.
that they are really interesting to both watch and play as. We see Zarina with the unhook, with the deliverance. They're going to try and set up for the hatch escape. There is what looks to be the sprint burst and the BT hit. Blight trying to get in front of them. Blight going to the correct side, and I believe they are in position for the hatch. In fact, I think they could even down Zarina right now, and it would be fine, but there's the hatch closed. Zarina unable to escape. A good, valiant effort, to be fair, but it will result in the 4K just the same.
Absolutely, that was fun to watch. Oh my goodness, because you knew he was wondering if they had already used it or not, or who had it. The Blight had no idea. He knew there was an end game to this.
Oh yeah. Sometimes the game sense is just all too accurate. The Blight just knowing something was up. I mean, for the people, sprint burst, those are perks commonly paired with the deliverance player. So, you know, given that they saw the for the people and sprint burst, I think... All right, and we are back for the final set of this match. And we are here on the chilly Mount Ormond Resort with a Legion mirror match. I'm actually wicked excited for this. Hopefully y'all are too. And that being said, going over the win conditions here. TLDR, Elysium needs to win this match, but they need to do so and have a 4-point advantage over Tremor to tie the match overall. A 5-point advantage over Tremor in this last set in order to claim victory. Anything less than that will result in a loss for Elysium, regardless if they win this trial.
That's exactly what I was about to ask you. So, like, you mean to tell me even if they win with a 3-point advantage, they still would lose, which comes into place if Laser had not been found. They would basically win with a 1-point advantage. You
are correct. You are correct. So yeah, everything counts. But that being said, they are going to need to perform well here, and we are seeing already these survivors playing pretty smart around the Legion, going to get the hit here. Survivors not wanting to drop the pallet at all, instead going to force the Legion to fatigue out. Also want to note, no killer instinct. The survivors spaced out really, really well here, to say the least.
You know, you got to be wondering why he didn't drop it. And honestly, the only thing I can think of is they were trying to figure out what add-ons he was probably bringing. They weren't sure what he had, so they'd rather take the hit than risk the killer having something to break the pallets quickly. So honestly, really good play, because most people would have probably just dropped it to keep some distance.
I mean, that is kind of the biggest thing about Legion, is that you have to be really aware of what add-ons are being brought, because they really change the play style with Legion in its entirety. Also, this is kind of common. Enduring Spirit Fury Legion with Julie's mixtape Eerie button is absolutely nuts, and this is what the survivors were playing around, and for good reason, because honestly, it can be really difficult to play around in its entirety because you drop pallet early, Eerie button's gonna break it. They fatigue out immediately, they lose 0 distance. You drop it on them, and they have Spirit Fury, well, they're right on top of you anyways. Not to mention, they get their power back immediately, even if you stun them, and it doesn't break, so they just vault it and then break it. It is a lose-lose scenario, and it is one of my favorite interactions with Legion, and probably the only way that we see Legion played in competitive play.
Yep, I agree with you there. Now, this is where I'm kind of wondering, like, it looks like to me like the only way you can play against a killer like this is you're gonna have to be somewhere with windows. You're gonna have to, maybe an LNT wall, I don't know. It's maybe main building might be the best place to hold him. It's kind of difficult to play against, because you drop the pallet, no matter what you do, he's gonna just keep at you.
Yeah, that is the biggest thing. It's very interesting to see how these survivors are going to play around it. With that being said, they are going to get downed, and we do see what looks to be another survivor nearby. Legion kind of taking a peek through the plow there and finding the Fang Min, and we're going to see the swing and the hit at the pallet.
Oh, you know, they're biting, they're just cringing there because they wanted to drop it. They wanted to get that stun. And the other guy probably before him didn't drop it because he was saving that hit for somebody else. There's a lot going through the mind right now as to what's going on, what they're communicating, how they're going to counter Spirit Fury and Enduring. There's just so much going on right now.
Yeah, there really is. And fact of the matter is, the killer's making good use of all the value that they have available to them. Do also want to mention that Scourge Hook Pain Resonance is in the mix in this perk set, where we are seeing 25% regression across the most progressed gen on the Scourge Hook hooks.
It's oh man, there's so much like how this is gonna play out. They have 3 gens done. Are they going to get one person out? What's going to happen? Everything's going to come down to the smallest decision. I'd love to be a fly on the wall right now in their VC, listening to the chaos going in between them, what they're trying to communicate, how they're going to strategize on how to win. Are they planning to get someone out? What's basically going on to how they're figuring out how they're going to do this.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is that it's going to be a very grindy game. You're just going to have to try and extend these chases as long as possible. You might also need to give up some hook states, which I think is exactly what the survivors are doing here as we see that 3rd gen pop off.
That's exactly, and I see that the Legion has realized this, so he's giving some room. He's going out, he's proxing, he's still going to camp this kill out. And they're sacrificing it. They're going to try to looks like they're going to switch, but they gave up that hook state, like you said. In exchange, they're trying to get more gens done. Now, the thing is here, unlike Blight, it's not about getting gens done. It's you want to get people out because it's completely possible. But are they planning, like, a lot of where they're planning is kind of what I'm curious about, whether they're thinking that they're going to get a 4K or that they're going to get people out. Because you can get, if they he kills someone now, he can still get a 4K at 1 gen.
Oh yeah, 1000%. We're going to see the Spirit Fury Enduring come into play right there. It's why you do have to wonder if you're not able to guarantee the pre-drop, is it even worth throwing the pallet in that moment? Because I'm not sure if Legion was actually going to get the hit if they didn't throw the pallet.
That's exactly. I don't think he would have had they. I think honestly it was a pallet that you could have probably saved, and instead gone for comp corner and just basically just ate the hit, ate the kill at that point. Just try to buy as many seconds as possible.
Yeah, that is very much my thought exactly. And we do see this gen pretty well progressed. Mind you, all 3 survivors currently injured, but not looking to heal at all. Just kind of trying to keep the Legion busy. We do see the pre-drop there, maybe a life, but no, not much distance gained by the tap here. Instead, gonna go for the window, but I think Legion has the distance, faking the window out and getting back in, and also vaulting back out, just trying to extend the chase as much as possible, and will do so long enough that another gen is completed. There's a 3rd gen, or rather a 4th gen, that's about to pop off. There is the final gen powering the Exegates, and even with this Scourge-like Pain Resonance coming in, it is not going to mean all too much.
It's definitely gonna put things into Tremor's favor. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch how Elysium counters the gameplay here, because if they get one person out, if that's all they did, if they got one person out, it would make it very difficult, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken on how the point system works, for Elysium to take the win. Could they even take the win? I guess they would have to get 3 people out to get the point to actually win?
I'll have to run the numbers at the end of the match to be able to say with any degree of certainty, but yeah, there's the Exegate opened. I think we're gonna see an attempted unhook potentially here in just a second, but otherwise they might just leave this survivor on hook to die, because everyone's injured unless they're able to get to the Exegate and heal up in some way, shape, or form, and maybe then attempt an unhook here. But even that seems a little bit dicey. Legion is trying to box everyone out. We see second stage on the tap, and we do see a heal on the Nancy, so they might just be able to secure a 3-man out if they play this right.
That's a lot. That's so tough to do, because they're gonna have to do a 2-man save. I've seen it well played at levels like Eternal, right? Like, they're bouncing back and forth, but it's so easy to make one small mistake and it costs you everybody getting killed. So yeah, it looks like that's what they're gonna do. Honestly, if it were me, I would just say take the 2-man out, but they've gotten found.
And there's a for the people as well. Legion's gonna be able to get the hit here and then try and get in front of one of these 2 survivors. If we're looking at the scorecard right now, the best person to get would actually be the Nia. They're trying to get in front of them both, and sure enough, will do that. They're at this tower now. It's gonna come down to the Nancy, trying their best to body block. Nia has not crossed their path yet, meaning that they're gonna be doubling back through, and I think this might just result in a 3K at the least, 4K at the most.
Yeah, this is where it comes down. They should have taken the 2-man out, man. That's got to be rough, because you know that they were trying to get that 3rd man. But even if they had just gotten the 1 person out, like that could be the difference in between Tremor winning and losing. It's definitely a gutsy call to make, because they had a plan. Unfortunately, they did not think that the killer was going to leave the hook as far as they did, to probably find them and surprise them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was that we saw the heal, and then we saw Nancy just cross right in front of Legion's point of view, and that within its own right was just the kind of calling card of, well, if they got healed, and I'm assuming they don't have a med kit, then I know where both of them are. And so that is what clued the Legion in, that they could be a bit more aggressive and end up getting at least a 3, if not 4K. I mean, the fact that they got the Neo, who was fresh hook, was huge for Elysium, and now puts them in a position to win this match.
Exactly. Now, if it were, I think honestly the best thing if they were going to go that route would have been to have 99 the heal on the first person, healed that other person completely, and then gone for the heal, because like you said, when they saw
All right, and we are back for the final trial of this match between Tremor and Elysium. Tremor killing against Elysium Survivor Team once again as Legion on the Mount Ormond Resort. And let's do a quick breakdown of the win conditions here today, as Tremor is going to need to get a 3K11 hook to win. Otherwise, a 2K10 hook ties it overall, like fully ties the match. Anything other than that results in a loss. A true 4K, win. But anything less than a 2K10 results in a loss for Tremor and a win for Elysium. It is going to be very interesting, even with End Fury, Fury Button, and so on. It's going to be a tall order, to say the least. That being said, we do see quite the early down here for Tremor's killer, as they do get some End Fury value.
That's definitely true there. Getting this hook early in the game with laser is definitely going to put the scales a little bit into their favor. The big question now is, he's got a hook early. Does he camp out the second stage? Does he go for another one? What is going to go through this killer's mind right now? Because he hears something. He's proxying. He knows there's someone nearby. If he can find this guy, get him before someone gets the save and before they get any gens done, it's going to really tip things into Tremor's favor.
Yeah, that is the biggest thing here. We do see the firecracker here from the Nick Cage, trying to blind them out of their power. It's actually really interesting when you think about it. It's one of the few killers that when blinded gets knocked out of their power. It's where you can sometimes end up with what's called Legion tech, where you personally get blinded over a pallet mid-vault and can then down the survivor on the other side.
I don't play enough Legion. I don't watch enough Legion to know that, and I'm glad you told me that, because I never in a million years would have known that.
It's such a unique and interesting interaction on the killer. That being said, one pallet down, Spirit Fury now activated with this second pallet broken, meaning that these survivors need to pre-drop. We're seeing Nick Cage do it here, and for good reason. If they fear that the Legion is going to get underneath the pallet, they cannot drop it, but a bit of a delayed vault there will result in the down here and second hook for these survivors.
This is a really tough situation, because I feel like Legion spent a little too much time on this Nick Cage. There was so much time there. You know, he's at least sacrificed one gen. One gen should be popping from the time that he had that Legion on.
At the same time, I mean, Scourge Hook, Pain Resonance coming in, regressing the most progressed gen by 25%. They still have 2 more tokens, and the Legion seeming to wanting to spread the pain across the survivors instead of going for the tunnel. However, 2 gens completed now, and looks like they are going to be guarding this half of the map with the Nick Cage on hook.
Yeah, so it looks like he's setting up for the win condition here. In my opinion, and what I've seen and how I can see this game playing out, it looks like this Legion knows it's going to come down to one gen. He's going to try to golf ball it between everybody, or ping pong it between everybody. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch how he plays this. Now, it's going to play extremely well into his favor if he can get Nick Cage again. So this team really wants to avoid that, because if he gets down in this area, they all know that he's just going to proxy and protect the gens here. Oh, yeah. Looks like Nick Cage has accepted his fate.
Yep, seeing exactly the writing on the walls and determining that best for me to just go as far away from the middle of these gens as possible. I see the hook that the Legion wants to get to. This is a bit of an aggressive hook. If there's someone, the Claudette, for a body block, that could be a game changer. However, it does not look like anyone's here. Nick Cage going back up on hook. And yeah, they're going to need to take some body blocks on their way out of that unhook and get the Nick Cage to the other side of the map.
That's so rough. It's such a tight game right now that they got the gen done. They sacrificed the hook for the gen. like you were saying, they could have taken body blocks. They decided not to. These guys are good, and they're at a high gameplay enough that they know they could have taken one, but they made the decision not to get the gen, to try to get the win condition. So it kind of plays out. If this killer gets this kill, if Kexko, excuse me, I'm mispronouncing that. But if they die, what is the win condition?
Well, so win condition still is 3K11 for the Legion. And that being said, it's if Nick Cage dies, it's still 3 survivors up for 3 gens. They can very easily make this work. However, I would need to point out, the only survivor that should be on this gen here is one of 2 survivors. Either the survivor with Sprint Burst or the survivor of Balanced Landing. No one else can be on that generator right there because it is an absolute dead zone. Though this one over here, not much better. And so you really do have to maybe send the Sprint Burst survivor over on the gen over here, which is hopefully the Claudette. And the other one needs to be Balanced Landing on the opposite corner, as we see a lot of the resources are now gone.
Absolutely. You know, a fun fact, I learned that in that corner, when you're in that dead zone, that's where I learned that you had to have Sprint Burst, because I had a Bubba just constantly keep me on that hook there. Just as soon as I got unhooked, I just never had enough time to get out of there. So I painfully understand you have to have Sprint Burst or Balanced Landing when you're in that corner.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing here, and I think the Legion sees it too, is what the Bill is what we call bait. Bill just trying to drag the Legion into chase in the opposite corner of the map. And so that is going to leave the ace to be on this last generator. However, as we mentioned, a 3K11 hook gets the win. A survivor needs to get out with 2 hook stages. Anything less than that will result in victory here for Tremor. And I mean, the killer knows that they're okay with this last gen being completed as long as the ace does not have the hook states to go. The thing is, ace is fresh and now has been found, and looks like Ace may have realized that things were all but over, just doing some fancy moves for the Legion here before their last chase. And that there will be the 4K here. That is once the ace goes down, but doing some fancy moves over his pallet here, trying to make the last chase as strong as possible. But Ian says, you know what, ignore that. I'm just gonna break the pallet. No more resources here for you today.
So funny. I just watched him moonwalking the way back there. All I could hear in my head was a ee-hee.
And there we go. There's the lunge and the down, and that there will be the 4K. Looking at Laser, the Bill, that would only be a loss of 2 points in the instance that they bleed out. So actually 1 point in the instance that they bleed out. So moot point there. Yeah, this here will secure the 4K and the win for Tremor.
Definitely. Oh, God. That's... I'm sorry. Oh, man. Now, I know I'm speaking hypothetically here, but... And I've like, made glue out of this point, but... Had Laser bled out in that second match on Blight, if he had not been found here, and bled out here too, would he have won? Just hypothetically, just because I know people are probably going to wonder.
So, in the instance of the bleed out in the Blight set, that would have been a 3-point difference. So it still wouldn't meet the 4 points here. It would have resulted in a tie set. If there was the bleed out during the Blight set and during the Legion set, it'd be 4 points exactly. So it would result in a true tie across the entire match. So a lot of what ifs, but the Blight one specifically, if that happened, it'd only be a 1 point difference.
Okay, I'm sorry, that just made me kind of laugh there, because there's so many. I always tell people a lot of these games come down to the littlest details.